Netflix has expanded the landscape of its fantasy offerings, including with one series covering Norse mythology that is quietly one of the platform's best in the genre. While large-scale fantasy productions often dominate the market, Netflix's somewhat inconsistent stroll into the world of fantasy TV hasn't been as domineering as other platforms. Even though the streamer has less to offer when it comes to fantasy on screen, Netflix's decision to bring global content to their platform has afforded viewers a look at shows that they wouldn't have seen otherwise, including an intriguing 3-season series surrounding Norse mythology from Norway, Ragnarok. Building on the wave of interest that films like Thor brought forward, Ragnarok tackles Norse mythology in an interesting way, modernizing the stories and blending the mythological elements with coming-of-age stories for their characters. A Norwegian language series, Ragnarok is grounded in a modern world that makes it easy to jump into, and focuses on themes that everyday viewers who may not be as familiar with Norse mythology coming into the show can hold on to. The show stands out for being able to clearly tell its story with a strong narrative that attracts all viewers, even those who aren't seeking fantasy. In a genre that is often shaped by open-ended stories, Ragnarok takes its time to tell a cohesive and complete tale. Utilizing elements of Norse mythology in interesting places and defining itself less through its fantasy elements, Ragnarok is one of Netflix's best shows of the genre. Ragnarok reimagines Norse mythology through a modern lens. As far as Netflix fantasy series go, Ragnarok is somewhat special. Focusing on high school student Magne, David Stakston, the show picks up as he arrives in the town of Edda after a long time away. Magne gradually discovers throughout the early episodes of the series that he is connected to the god Thor, which causes difficulties for the young teen. As Magne learns more about his connections to the Norse god, secrets about his past open up for him, and Ragnarok tackles the realities of his coming-of-age story with mythological conflicts. The blend of genres is perfectly done. Focusing on a younger protagonist can be tricky, especially for a show that isn't necessarily interested in leaning into the idea of being a young adult drama. Ragnarok uses Magne's age as a way to move into the story, rather than as a part of the story as a whole. Bringing in more direct mythology and fantastical elements to balance out the piece of the series where Magne is a young person dealing with young issues, Ragnarok aligns itself with a clear narrative, choosing not to bog itself down. It explores identity as a whole, rather than a part. Ragnarok's 3-season structure tells a complete story. As a series, Ragnarok does something that many Netflix shows don't get the chance to. Going into the series with a 3-season arc, the show is able to achieve a full and complete story throughout its run. Ragnarok Season 3, which was the show's final, is able to define itself as the concluding piece of the series' puzzle, which is a genuine feat for some other Netflix shows. In telling such a whole story, Ragnarok is able to feel like a structured story throughout its run. This lends to better storytelling overall and makes it clear to viewers that stories, regardless of when they're presented within the narrative, will be resolved by the end of the series. Ragnarok stands out in Netflix's fantasy lineup MovieStills.db. Netflix's catalog of fantasy shows is a wide-ranging, somewhat disappointing slate of shows. While some are high-budget and high-concept, others aren't able to contend. Ragnarok falls close to the high end of the spectrum, mostly because of its ability to maintain consistency throughout its run. With steady viewership and an invested interest from the audience, Ragnarok was able to remain a grounded show that brought a specific, regional voice to the stories of Norse mythology. An effective fantasy series with an interesting slant, Ragnarok was able to combine focused stories, depth, and consistent execution to create a great fantasy narrative.